We are here to talk about the pop culture detective, Danny Boy O'Connor.
Hi guys.
Hey.
I'm Danny. I don't know about the pop culture detective. It's a bit of a misnomer and a bit of a truth. So how do I start? Never in a million years did I think I'd be at a Comic-Con talking about pop culture. Thank you, Kevin, for having me come out here and do it. It's actually an honor. But as a kid, I didn't see myself in this role. So I can give you a quick elevator pitch on how the pop culture thing affected me. Born in New York, raised in Los Angeles at a time where LA had a lot of working actors. So when I came from New York, I lived in a neighborhood that had Todd Bridges from Different Strokes and Danielle Brisbois from, I don't remember what stuff she was on in the 70s and 80s. Adam Rich from 80s and now. So I thought like, oh my God, like all this stuff that you see on TV is right here in the San Fernando Valley. And you know, was raised like most people, the television, movies, stuff like that. I was not a comic guy, but I understand, you know, it has the same impact. And then you get a little jaded because you live around all these people and you know people that are in the industry, so you're like, whatever, and you learn to kind of shut that off. And it wasn't, you know, again, it wasn't something that I planned on even, I mean, I couldn't see this path for me in a million years. I'll tell you how I got there. What ended up happening is in about, you know, I started a band when I was in high school. The band sold 1 million records. I got $1 million. I thought it would never end. If you're in a band, I'm going to tell you my best advice is write those songs, keep your publishing. That's mailbox money. You'll get that forever. I started the band, named the band, designed the band, did not write the song. Do not get mailbox money. So again, if you're in a band, write the song, keep your publishing. That being said, band was great, then the band wasn't great, and then I spent, you know, a decade on drugs, and then after getting sober and then cleaning up my act, I started having a different appreciation for things that were important to me, and they weren't the property, prestige, and the outside stuff. It was more of the stuff that I felt at a coming of age era, stuff like the Bad News Bears and the Outsiders and Goonies and all of those kind of Stand By Me. If I could just have a group of guys that I could run around the neighborhood with and go on adventures, that would be enough. And it kind of has to be enough because when you get to a certain level in entertainment and you get paid a ridiculous amount of money and you get all the accolades and then that kind of ends, you're at a weird place in life. You have to really get right-sized or it's tough out there, and you know. And so it became a thing, and I started riding a motorcycle around LA, and I had a bunch of friends, and we were going out every weekend riding and doing kind of like Goonies stuff, but I always wanted to stop the ride to go see like historical stuff, and most of the guys are like, dude, why are we stopping? I'm like, yeah, well, this house was in Pretty in Pink, and we're in Pasadena, can we go by there? You can't stop the ride for you to go see, you know, Molly Ringwald's thing. And so eventually I started just doing my own rides and, you know, just going to see these things. And it was just in LA right now, and I've been out of LA for almost 2 years, but I've been back a few times. There's a lot of change going on, and I don't know that it's great change. The change starts to look like Las Vegas downtown. They're tearing down a lot of the historic buildings on Sunset Boulevard in particular, and they're building these things that look like they're better suited for Saudi Arabia or Las Vegas. And so, and I know that's happening in LA, and I know that's happening in a lot of places. So, in 2009, I was on tour with another group I do. We were passing through Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we, Kevin line one, we went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we had a 3-day layover, which means it's cheaper to stay in that city than it would have been to take the whole band and go to Dallas because we had a show there in 3 days. We would incur higher hotel charges and higher restaurant charges, etc. So when you book a tour out, you always make sure that you book those days off in the cheapest place you can to save money, the more money you make. And so 3 days stuck in Tulsa, and I do mean stuck because at the time in 2009, downtown Tulsa was basically shuttered. It's this beautiful oil, it was the oil capital of the world in the turn of the century, early 20s, 30s, and 40s. town was built up on oil money. It's got the third largest collection of Art Deco buildings. It's a beautiful city. It's the Paris of the Midwest. If anybody's been to Tulsa, you'll understand. Unfortunately, a lot of those corporations pulled out in the 80s, and when they went, there was no money circulating in, so they kind of shut the city down, literally. A lot of the buildings, they looked beautiful, but they were shuttered. They would light up the buildings to have an appearance of that there was things going on there, but there really wasn't much. So 2009, I was there 3 days stuck, and I thought, man, what are we gonna do here for 3 days? I'm sober, I'm highly caffeinated, and I bought a new camera. And I had a BlackBerry too, which had like a 1.nothing megapixel. And I'm like, wow, I can really show people the life on Facebook, you know, with this nice new. And so we called the guy to take us around, and it took him about an hour and a half to get there. It was an old dude chain smoking cigarettes in a soccer van, and I was like, dude, this cannot be good. And I said, where are you taking us? He goes, well, we could go to the Woodland Hills Mall. And I'm like, oh. So we went to the Woodland Hills Mall, and about an hour after that, I'm like, God, what do people do here for kicks? And it occurred to me, oh my God. I said, driver, is this the place where they filmed The Outsiders? It was just like right out of left field, and he hit the brakes like, yes! And I'm like, oh my God, do you know any locations? He goes, I know where the drive-in is. And I don't know if anybody's seen The Outsiders, if you know the history of The Outsiders. I have. You've seen well played. It's a total sidetrack, but last night, did you guys see Tom, what is his name?
Tim Capello.
Tim Capizio. Tim Capello. We were standing there watching him play his thing, and we were like, oh my God, this is the guy. This is the dude in the Lost Boys. Can you believe we're here? And my man was like, I can't believe I'm actually here watching the guy from the Lost Boys with the dude from House of Pain. I'm here watching it. I'm the dude from House of Pain, and he's here too. Like, we're like pinching ourselves. Like, what the hell? The layer upon layer of weirdness.
And Tim's just on stage like, I don't know those guys.
My man even touched the sax. Level of weirdness. But anyway, so that guy knew a location. He knew the drive-in and The Outsider. So I was like, I'm in. I told the rest of the gang, you guys want to go? They're like, no. And so, you know, that thing, you know, drop him at the hotel, give the guy $100, and he gives me a proper tour of Tulsa. At the time, we found the drive-in. Since 2009, that drive-in, it burnt down. The screen was made out of wood, but they did raise the money and they've rebuilt it. It looks literally like the land that time forgot. It's a beautiful city, it's a beautiful drive-in, but they fixed it. But at that time, it was still up. We were able to find the park where Johnny stabs the Soch when they try to drown Pony Boy. Park looks just the same as it did in the movie, with the exception of the jungle gyms and the actual fountain were not there. The fountain was built for the movie, and we now have the top of the fountain. The guy who built it still has what we're calling the urn, the centerpiece. His mother is 98. She's got her flowers in there, so he doesn't have the heart to tell her she can't have it anymore. But when she goes, we're assured that we will get it. So time is on our side, you know. Worry about it. But when I got to the park, I mean, literally, I got goosebumps just being in that park, because as a disconnected 13-year-old kid who originally went and seen that movie in Woodland Hills, California, father who was never around, mother who didn't want kids, latchkey kid. They were the proverbial, like, if I could just find dudes like them in denim jackets, smoking non-filters, life could just be simple. I just wanted a gang of guys that were there for me. And it's the story is as old as time. You know, it's why people join gangs. It's why I was attracted to hip hop, because it was crews, graffiti crews, breakdance crews, whatever. It was that family that we try to build outside of the lives, because we don't feel we're getting what we need at home. And so The Outsiders was the pinnacle of that. For me, it was the tip of the spear. It was like, oh my God, that's my movie. So at 13, I was smitten with the whole thing. And, you know, it carried on through life. So I get to Tulsa, I find a few locations. We're playing Kane's Ballroom, which is a historic old juke joint that's there. It's still a thriving place. It's the CBGBs of the Midwest, if you will. And I'm also good friends with a few of the dudes from the band, the Sex Pistols. So when I got to Kane's Ballroom after spending all day looking for Outsiders locations and taking photos, the guy said, hey, he told me you're friends with Jonesy from the Sex Pistols. Come in my office, I want to show you something. He showed me a hole that Sid Vicious had punched in there in the green room in 1978, one of their last shows. And when they remodeled the whole place, they cut out the hole and they put it in the office and they framed the hole. So, you know, being a ham I am, I took a selfie in front of there, and I took one in front of the outsider's house. And then I put my phone on the table in the tour bus, and something miraculous happened that day. That phone just started to levitate. I was like, all day long, it started sliding across the table. I'm like, what the? And it was so many likes. Now, I don't know if you remember, and I like to think of myself as a pretty cool customer, but back in the days, you post a photo and people were stingy. They're like, nah. So you post the really cool stuff and get like 3 likes. You're like, damn, that's it? I posted the outsider's house and be out in front of it, and I posted the picture of the hole in the wall that's vicious to punch, and I got like 100 likes that day, which is miraculous. I was like, I like this, whatever. I got to see Outsiders locations, a Sex Pistols location, Play the Canes ballroom, and 100 likes. I'm like, this is cool. I want it.
And all for $100.
I mean, right? Yeah, you're right. So I started using that tour bus as my vehicle to see more of these. The next thing I think we did, we went to Dallas right after that, but it wasn't, I didn't do anything in Dallas that I remember, but the next stop would have been Minneapolis. And I grew up a fan because my mother was a huge fan of Mary Tyler Moore. So I went and saw the statue that they put where she throws her hat up in the air. And so I started to string this little thing together. This is where the pop culture detective thing comes up. I'm the kind of dude who finds a doorknob and goes, this doorknob is cool, let's build a house around it. You know, I don't start in the reverse way. I don't build a house and then go looking for cool doorknobs. It usually starts with something really insignificant that leads to way bigger things. And so when I started posting these locations online, I started giving up the addresses. And a lot of people, prior to that, I looked everywhere on the internet. There were Flickr accounts and stuff like that where there would be locations like before and after, but they would withhold the addresses because it was proprietary to their collecting coolness. They're like, yeah, we're not telling you where that was, go find it. I'm like, that ain't cool. Like, let people see where it is. So we started doing it. We started a thing called the Delta Bravo Urban Exploration Team. And before long, I started meeting people that had, you know, like, hey, I'm a cop in New York, I live in Queens, and there's a lot of cool stuff over here, can I join your thing? I'm like, yeah, cool. I met a few cops, a few soldiers, a few other photographers, other dudes in bands, and then, you know, and it became this collective. And now there's about 50 of us active still. At one point, there was like 150 of us, but we had to, like, you know, cull the herd a little tight, a little rid of some, you know, disruptive types. But it became a thing, and it was like a really cool hobby, and it's as close as you can get to time traveling and going back in time in that era of like whatever your sweet spot is, movie-wise, true crime, music, whatever. We take album covers and we go, where was that Foghat album where he's fishing down the manhole, and then we'll find it, and then whether it's contacting the photographer who took it, or sometimes it's available information on the internet. But to go there, there's something sacred about it. You know, we live in a world now, when I was growing up, I couldn't just dial up anything I wanted on the internet and see it in HD. Go, wow. We actually had to get on our bicycles or go walking or take a bus to get anywhere to see these things. And it's kind of what's missing. It's why I loved hip hop. I'm 50, so I missed punk rock by like 4 or 5 years. Although I'm into punk, but it wasn't my like generation. I was into hip hop. But the great thing about being in hip hop early on was the scavenger hunt of the whole thing. It's like you didn't just go online and buy yourself those pair of Adidas or those Nikes or that Kangol hat or that whatever you were looking for. You had to actually go out and suss it out and find it and get it. And then when you got it, bring it out on Friday night and see if anybody else does it. They know that's your tribe, that's your people. Like they see you, and so. There's something missing in this world where we can dial up everything and buy everything on Amazon and eBay that kind of removes that. So I found that I was getting that same kind of charge from doing the urban exploring, and it took me out of my sweet zone, and it put me out on the streets again. And really, we live in a wonderful time where if one of us has a smartphone, we have everything, because you've got navigation with the maps. You've got a camera, you've got a video recorder, you've got your own station because you've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you can broadcast to your people, right? You really don't need much more. You've got one guy with the car and one guy with the phone, I mean, you're in. It doesn't take, there's no like, you just have to have imagination and the wherewithal to go see these things. What I started to find after doing a lot of these was that we were losing them quickly. And living in LA, the normal definition of urban exploring is really not what we've ended up doing. Urban exploring is usually in places like Detroit where the car industry has collapsed, and you would go in an old building like the Packard factory and you would break in a side door, and you would go up every floor of, you know, decrepit old building and take your photos at night and be like, we urban explored that old factory. And those are exciting, but in LA, nothing's old. Nothing, if it doesn't produce, it's torn down and rebuilt. And so, but we are rich in pop culture stuff. So whether that's Charlie Manson and the Spawn Ranch out in the back of the valley, or a million different, you know, movie locations. And so we started to do it. It became a great hobby. And I never thought in a million years that I would end up doubling back and going and buying the Outsider's house. So what happened was, it became a thing. I started touring more often. I started doing a lot more road trips because of the urban exploring. And every time I would at least do 2 or 3 a year, LA to wherever I was going. And every time I would go cross country, I'd always go, let's go to Tulsa, let's go see the Outsider stuff. You guys remember that movie? Like, yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna show you, I got all those locations on lock. And I would start bringing people there. And every year I get there, the little city started to like have its like renaissance. And it's been 10 years since I originally got there. I've been living there for 2 years, but in the 10 years, the growth there in Tulsa, Oklahoma has been exponential. And I started to notice the city was like finding its mojo again, and things were getting built, and they were reopening businesses that were long shuttered and reinventing new ones. But the Outsider's house kept looking smaller and smaller. So the tenants that were living there were hoarding in there. They were, I don't want to bad rap anybody, they were just, you know, they were poverty stricken, and they couldn't take care of it. The owner of the actual Outsider's house, it inherited it when her husband had bought it, fluffed and buffed it, used it as a rental property. He passed away soon after. She moved to Florida. She was an absentee landlord. The tenants were 8 months behind in rent, and year 5, when I went back for 5 years straight, I would go back and forth to Tulsa and just check on it. And at year 5, I was like, I just had this weird inclination that if somebody didn't step up to do something with it, that it might not be here on year 6 when I came back. What I started to see was that this great organization called Habitat for Humanity, which built very nice houses for people who usually can't, and I believe I'm qualified. I might even hit them up soon because I could use that. But what they do is they build, they go into bad neighborhoods, tear out bad houses, build new houses, and then they make really affordable loans, and you buy a house that way. Unfortunately, when they were coming through the neighborhood where The Outsiders was filmed, they were tearing up a lot of the lots and a lot of the places that the filming had occurred. And something just kept pushing on me, Danny, you gotta do something, you gotta look into it. And I just kept ignoring it. Shut up, I ain't got time for it. You know, I couldn't, I live in Beverly Hills at the time. I'm like, I don't have any business in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then finally I was like, man, let me see what I can find out about this. And we were able to get the owner's phone number finally, because I had tried to reach her from email. I went online and paid like $20 for like some history search, and all the emails were like at AOL or at Hotmail or Hotmail. It just didn't, I couldn't find her. Finally ended up finding her. We had a brief conversation. I didn't also want her to know who I was too, because I thought if she Googled me, she's gonna think I'm like a rich rap guy, and I am not a rich rap guy. I made more on action in the 90s than I've ever made in the 2000s, I can assure you. And I was in no position or had no business buying a house in Tulsa, so let's just start there. So I had my friend call, and I forgot to tell you, when I first got there the first time in 2009, the house was actually for sale for 40 grand, and I could not believe that a national treasure could be had anywhere, because you can't find anything in Los Angeles with the word real attached to it for 40 grand. Nothing. So I was like, you can have this.
Sometimes Spain costs you 40 grand.
At least, if you can even get in on that. So that was also like omnipresent in my mind. I could have bought this house for 40 grand. So when we finally got a hold of the owner, I had a friend who's very wealthy. First of all, he was like, what do you want with a 40 grand house, dude? I'm like, he was insulted that I even asked him to make a call on a $40,000 house. It was so beneath him. I'm like, clearly you haven't seen The Outsiders. He's like, no. I'm like, just dude, make the call. So he made the call. The lady said, I'm tired of dealing with the tenants. They're not paying, but I won't take a penny less than 20 grand. He said, I won't give you a penny more than 15. I've seen the house. He lied. He had never seen the house. She said, let me think about it. Done. She called me back. Unbeknownst to me, I just said, find out what she's doing with the house, and if she's ever interested in selling, would she give us a call, a courtesy call, maybe we'll be interested. He calls me back, he's like, you own the house. I'm like, what? I go, Don, what are you talking about? He goes, dude, you bought the house, send me my 15 grand. I'm like, you're kidding me right now. He goes, I gotta go. I had to find the house, default, really? I would have overthought it. You know, hold on. there's an opportunity to buy the house that I want, let me overthink this. Give me like 4 months to overthink the whole thing and complicate it. So I'm glad he did the bidding, you know, and just got it done. So I was like half elated, half I felt like a criminal. Like, we just 15 grand. We had the outsider sauce. So I got in my car. I drove to Tulsa, Oklahoma from LA, Beverly Hills. I got there. I also gave the tenants living there. We paid $5,000 and gave them cash for keys. Although they did not leave the keys, and they did leave party gifts. They left me 3 days worth of. Yeah, it was, and I have photos, but I won't. I broke in the house, got in there. The first thing I screamed out was security. I was like, I want that lady. I want my 15 grand back. I've been robbed. There's no. I mean, she knew better than me. I mean, it's a 100-year-old house. It was moved to the area it's in the 40s. They filmed there in '82. Coppola came to town. My understanding was they took over an elementary school in the neighborhood of North Tulsa. It's called Lowell Elementary School. That was their base camp, and Tommy could probably tell more about it. But I have amazing photos in there of them rehearsing for the rumble scene, for them going over, you know, acting things. They had the wardrobe there, all the cars were stored there, et cetera, et cetera. And so, in having that base camp in the neighborhood, the park was literally right across the street from it, so they filmed 6 different scenes in that, 5 different scenes. The Dally gets shot on one corner, the brothers reunite on that same corner, the fountain was on the other corner, the Mustang comes up to them on the jungle gym in that one corner, and then the last corner is the rumble's gonna be clean, no knives and no guns, with Sherry and her Corvette, and that meeting they filmed from the bottom up. The rumble field in that block is 1 block over, and then the house is like 2 blocks from there. So really, you could throw a baseball and hit 10 different locations in that neighborhood. Unfortunately, again, Habitat for Humanity did not know or care about that, and they were coming through tearing a lot of that out. And so I got there just in time. So buy the house, realize I'm in way over my head. And for the record, and because for whatever reason I'm an open book, I had 28 grand in a Chevys Regal bag under my bed. That's my life savings. I put 20,000 into the house. I had 8 grand left. My wife at the time had never seen the movie or read the book. She grew up in the desert, like in Christian, like they didn't let her watch anything. So I was out there, like all on my own. I'm like, I got 8 grand left, no foreseeable income in the future, and I just bought a $20,000 like teardown. And so I asked for help. And the humbling part for me was asking for help. There's nothing worse than being 6'6" and not knowing the first thing about anything mechanical. Like if a light goes out, I'm like, oh, maybe plug it in. I'm not built for that. I look like it, right? But I'm not built for any of that stuff. He's like, I'm not good with any of that. So when I got in the house, I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. Dan, you're in trouble. And so I thought, I'm going to ask for help. And if I ask for help, this can't be my fort no more. This can't be my little man fort in Tulsa where like a few of my outsiders buddies hang out every once in a while. At the time, I only had 1 outsiders poster. I had the cool one, the $250 one. That's all I had. I didn't have anything. So I thought if worst come to worst, I own a house. I'm a homeowner now, you know. I'll clean it up. I'll put my poster in Pony Boy's room. If by chance somebody else recognizes what a gem this house is and knocks and I'm in a good mood, I may show them my poster. Everything else I'm going to take into my new house, right? But when I got in that house, trust me when I tell you guys, I mean, it smelled to high heaven. It was rats, roaches. It was bad. And that's when I asked for help, and I got the help. And I thought, nobody cares about this thing because it could be had for so cheap. I mean, I just asked, and they basically were like, take it. I thought I'd be all alone on this thing, and I was wrong. And people came out of the woodworks. And so none of this I've done. In Tulsa, believe it or not, just by being tall and look a little different than, you know, they're like, thank you for what you're doing, thank you for what you're doing, thank you for what you're doing. And I'm like, thank you, but it's not me, thank you, but it's not me. And I think I'm being coy or being like, you know, but really it's not me. Like, I just bought the house. The fandom and the Tulsans and people just came to help. And the people with the least to give have given us the most. I mean, plumbers come by and go, I can't do much. And after soccer on Saturday, I can come by and maybe take a look at your thing, but I wouldn't mind helping you fix this. And I'm like, that works, that's cool. Roofers are like, hey, I see you're missing some shingles. We can come up there on Saturday and fix it after work. And I'm like, that's cool, that'll work. Like, I just keep saying yes. Like, okay, yeah, we can do that, do whatever. So this house was a complete tear down. The only thing that's original that we could save was the original floor, which is this amazing, it's very unique floor. It's herringbone into parquet, into softwood. You'll come see it and you'll understand. It's a 100-year-old floor. We were pulling out, when we started pulling off all the walls, we took this thing down to the sticks. We started pulling out the walls. There was a 100-year-old Tulsa world in the walls as insulation, and that's how we knew. That's what I was like, how can this be built in the 40s? There's a 100-year-old newspaper. Unless, I mean, there's a possibility. When we did the homework, it was moved there from a different part of town in the 40s. That being said, it needed a lot of work, and we've got it now to we're about a couple months from being open. It took us 3 years. Originally, when they came to interview me, they're like, how long do you think this will take? And in my infinite wisdom, I'm like, 6 months. How much money will you need? 40 grand, I don't know, 10 grand, 30 grand. I'm like, yeah, 6 months. And so now we're on year 3. We've probably been into it for 150 grand and untold gifts and time, even people coming to do a service, whatever. We've actually been able to get the Habitat for Humanity. So when I first got the house, it got a lot of attention locally. They said, what was the impetus for you buying this? I said, I had a sneaking suspicion that the Habitat for Humanity was coming through this neighborhood and they were looking to tear it down. And I said, when I first bought the house, I was there week 1, and a guy come up to me and he said, you know, this house was on my short list. I said, your short list? What's a short list? He said, we're going to tear it down. I said, clearly you're kidding. He says, no, I work for the Habitat. I buy all these houses in this neighborhood. I'm the one who tore down the church in the movie. I'm like, oh, so you do know this is the outsider's house, right? And I'll never forget it. He looked at me and he said, inside or outside, don't matter what side. Two habitats here. I said, with all due respect, you can put 2 habitats anywhere you like in North Tulsa. Why here? And he just confused look, because if you know the neighborhood literally a block any direction, they're all derelict homes. You could put those anywhere. It almost felt like he got some pride out of like mashing through there with impunity. But regardless, I used to tell that story in the press. It wasn't good optics for Habitat. I ended up getting a call from the top guy, hey, let's get coffee. And I'm like, why? No, I'm scared. So we went and got coffee. He goes, how can I help? I'm like, well, there was this general store behind the house that you kind of see in the 2005 version. We need 2 more bathrooms and to put a handicap ramp and a more gallery space. He goes, we'll build it. I'm like, you'll build it? He said, we'll build it. Shut up. High five. They delivered on 60% of their promise, which it is what it is. I'll take what I get and love it. They quoted me on 3 months build out. It was a year. You know, these things, if I've learned anything about remodeling or construction or whatever, it's usually 3 times the amount of money and 10 times the amount of time, or the other way around. It's always your budget and your plan and never. So that being said, we're really close. We had a tornado come through there a week and a half ago. You were there. You were there. They were evacuating hotels. I live in a hotel downtown Tulsa. We did lose a tree, almost hit the house, and another tree dropped a big branch and put a hole in our roof and leaked out. So every time we're getting close to announcing a ribbon cut and opening, we've had a few hiccups. That being said, we're close. And why I'm here to tell you about that is not to put you through an hour-long commercial for a museum in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There have been a lot of, we were talking earlier, me and Tommy, about, you know, like social media and the perils of the highlight reel. You know, if you look at somebody's life on the internet, it looks great to me. I mean, I bonsai tree my whole thing. You look at it, you're like, ooh, easy. But inside, I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, how is this going to work, how am I going to sell tickets, I need a rubber stamp. In the middle of the night, I wake up, go, I need a rubber stamp for people when they come to the house. What am I going to do? It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And it's just so many moving parts. There's not one hat. I'm not just the museum guy. I'm like the executive director, the social media guy, I'm the collector, I'm the foreman, I'm the cat feeder. There's stray cats, and we told people, hey, we got a bunch of stray cats and dogs, and people send food all the time. And some days the best I can do is feed the cats. I mean, it's really, I have to get right size with that. Like, have all these plans, a guy can't come do the drywall, can't make it till next week because there's a storm, there's a million different, and I'm like, Danny, did you feed the cats? And some days that's the best it's gonna get. You fed the local cats, you know? But in the last 3 years, what I've noticed was I needed your help, and I can't honestly get help and then call it my house. So it was going to be a moving museum, and then we started collecting. But what I noticed was families coming through with their kids who were either getting to 7th grade and knew that it was required reading. Their older brother and sister had went through that rite of passage. Their parents that were young enough to remember when they saw the movie and read the book. And there's this whole lineage that we were talking too about last night about music and how generational wealth would be like Rolling Stones. Like your Outsiders, again, I could do 2 hours of this thing unfortunately, but it's a beautiful story. It was written by a 15-year-old girl who was failing English that year and got a D+ in creative writing. Her name is Susan Eloise Hinton. When she got the book published the following year, her and the publishers agreed that they were not going to call her Susan Eloise Hinton because boys would not probably be inclined to read a book written by a 15-year-old girl, so they called her S.C. Hinton. We didn't know if it was Steve Earle or whatever. There's people I meet all the time, I love that guy, his writing is my favorite. I just let it go. She wrote the book, she's still alive. The book it's never been out of print. It just celebrated 51 years. The movie just celebrated 31 years. The first time Tommy came back to Oklahoma for an event we threw, I seen it with my own eyes. If you've ever seen footage of when the Beatles got to JFK, or Elvis would just go be anywhere, when Tommy came out, I mean, girls, 7, 8, 10, crying. There's a picture of the Tulsa World because they're seeing Tommy as Pony Boy as...
No, they're crying because Pony Boy's 50. Let's keep it real.
What I see is that it cuts both ways too, unfortunately, and it's also, I believe, so Susie S.C. Hinton still lives in Tulsa. She's young 70s, 71 maybe. She's very apprehensive about doing any public speaking and public appearances for the most part, because a book of that magnitude and a movie of that magnitude cuts really deep, especially when you're young. And these coming of age movies, people are like, I've been waiting my whole life to tell you everything about this thing. And she's like, I gotta go, I'm shot. The line starts to form, and it can be overwhelming as well. So there's just this weird little intersection of like, let's save her legacy. Let's honor her work. Let's but also make somewhere where kids can come and discover what can happen if you wrote anything. She says, don't let punctuation and grammar get in the way of you telling your story. And if a little 15-year-old girl from the Midwest can write a book that goes on to bloom so many different careers, flowers. She writes Rumblefish 5 years later. She had writing block, and then she finally did that. Coppola also bought that. Turned it into a movie, so they filmed The Outsiders and Rumblefish back to back, both in Tulsa. Prior to that, Tex was a movie, and Disney had bought that. And the fact that she was failing and got a D+ is the winner for me. If she was a Mensa student and straight A's, I'm like, dude, that's what straight A girls do. They write books. But I love the humanity in it. That
Well, credit to her English teacher for pushing her forward, because it was an essay to begin with. And he read that, and because of her struggles with writing, he encouraged her to continue, hoping that would help her grow. And she turned it into a novel.
See, it's great.
Iconic.
I didn't know. So
So she had a great teacher. Kudos to that dude.
Yeah, see? I'm gonna look him up now. We're gonna find out. Next will be me.
You know me.
Later, Tommy. So moving forward, this thing is really, what I'm trying to tell you here is that great things can happen from the littlest thing. And I had no money and no plan. And I found this little house that meant something to me. And I thought, well, if there's a few of us, maybe this can work. What I did was ask for help. Again, that's not...
But then Ralph and Rob and me and a lot of us rallied around.
No, of course. And
that was so important to us.
Can you come up here for a second and tell us about how you found out about it? Ladies and gentlemen, see Thomas.
It's interesting because there's sort of two ways to look at it. There's the people that don't really want the accolades or the credit because they just don't feel maybe worthy of being in the spotlight of that. But for me, Tulsa means a lot to me. That was a really important experience for me. And because I had heard from a really good friend of mine, who played Randy in the movie, Darren Dalton. He was also in Red Dawn. He was the one that let me know that Danny was involved with the house. And I just thought, wow, you know, two things. First of all, I couldn't believe they were going to destroy the house. And secondly, the fact that somebody had interest to save it and hopefully share it for future generations, I thought was just a worthy cause. So I got in touch with Danny and just said, hey man, whatever you need, I'm there. So we've been close friends and have worked together. I support a couple of really important foundations in Tulsa. And for me to be able to go back and give back to these people whenever I can it's just great. It really is great. And to see kids and families come to the house and, you know, stand where Pony Boy stood, or you know, look at the fence that Tom Cruise flipped over, and like, you know, they're going around and enjoying those moments. How awesome, you know, how awesome that we can put together a mini tour, take them to the Circle Theater, which is a landmark theater where I walked out in the beginning of the film, to go to the park and see where the Rumble was. And this is all within just a mile or two. The tracks are right down the street where we walk down the train tracks all the time. And it's a great afternoon. It's a great day to come and just be a part of that. So our goal is to be able to raise enough money, bank it, and be able to fund field trips for these schools and bring in these kids that can't do that for themselves, that don't have the parents to be able to take the time and can't afford it. So there's a bigger vision here for us. You know, I just didn't want to give up on it. I have a career today, thank God. That's takes up a lot of my time. I got a 2-year-old son. You give the outsiders.
Give it time.
And I really am grateful that there, you know, was interest on this level. But not to mention, each year I get a new batch of 13, 14-year-old fans. The book, it sells millions of copies every year. I mean, it has for, you know, almost 40 years. It's unbelievable. So I feel a certain responsibility to be able to connect with people like yourselves who are interested. That's really why I do these shows. I don't really make money. You know, we make a few bucks at these places, but there's not really a whole lot of money. It's just more about the time and connecting with people and, you know, giving a hug to somebody like you. That means a lot to me. You know, I remember the first time I asked for an autograph was to Jerry Rice, right? The incredible Jerry Rice, and I had a picture of him, and I went up to him, and I was up in Tahoe at the big celebrity golf tournament, and I was like, whew. It took me a few minutes. I mean, I'm like 24, you know? I'm like, okay, that's Jerry Rice, I gotta go get this, man. I go up to him like, Mr. Rice, huge fan, this picture's on my wall. Would you sign it for me? I'm thinking, dude's got no soul, man, right? So he looks at me and he's like, he hesitates and he says, I don't sign merchandise. I was like, what you sign? Bring your own napkin? I mean, I was devastated. So I walked away, tossed the picture, wrote the Niners off, not a Jerry Rice fan, and affected deeply, right? So now when somebody comes up to me, I really take the time to try to connect. It's really important to me. Having had that experience for myself, and I probably, you know, over dramatize it a bit. He was probably but I try to really give back now and make the effort to make a trip to go to Tulsa where we're having events, to connect with the kids, to go on stages and just, you know, try to make a difference. And that's what Danny's doing. And it's kind of funny, you know, you're in your 20s and 30s and you're just trying to get yours. You know, you hit 40 and 50 and you start to think, I need to give back. And that's just where we're at in our lives right now. And, I'm really grateful that you all were here, and I didn't need to take a...
No, I'm glad. Listen, it's my honor. And just to add to that, again, like I was saying, like the highlight reel, it all looks like, wow, I got this house and all this great support. They gave me the key to the city. They gave you the key to the city, Susie Hinton. I'm like, this is like 50 years overdue for Susie, but we got in there too. Like, he had me hold his key, and you don't know this, but I'm going to tell you this because I tell it other places, and it always gets a laugh, but it's true, and it shows growth on my end. So we did a hand imprint of Susie Hinton and St. Thomas Howell in the cement at the house. And so he said, here, hold my key. And so I held his key, but you forgot that I had your key. And I'm saying hi and bye, and I dropped the key, my key, and it dinged the key. And I'm like, sorry. I'm like one of those dudes who's like, oh man, it's damaged, I don't want it. I just got the key to the city and I drop it. And then we can't find Tommy because the bus has got to go. And I finally go, Tommy, we got to go. The bus, he's like, bro, I lost my key. And I'm like, I got his key.
Yours has a ding on it.
And I'm like, in my mind, my old habits are like, switch key. Dude, yours dropped. Like, don't do it, Danny, don't do it. And I'm like, oh, here's your key, Tommy, and I gave him the correct one. Now I look at that key as a badge of honor. It's a greaser key. I dropped it, it's dinged, it happened on the
Yeah, but you're gonna put yours on a chain.
I did. I put it on a bag. I put it on a big old dookie rope. I had the key. He's like, that's the best use of a key I've ever seen. But it was staged. It wasn't, regardless, it's framed. We've got a lot of good accolades from it, but the truth is that there's been a lot of sad times over there. Only sad because, life on life's terms sometimes is not, it doesn't always match up the highlight reel you see on the internet. And I'm there and it's raining and my guys ain't showing up and all I'm getting is when is it opening and nothing's coming in and everything's going out. And it's something silly like a family will come by and I'll see the eyes light up in these kids and I'm like, Danny, there's a purpose here for you. It's really bigger than the movie. It's bigger than all of the individual. It's not bigger than that, gentlemen. I don't know. No, it's got all these great parts, but it really, the kids, they don't see that 36 years is a long time for a movie. It's like showing your kids, never. But it's all of the things.
Here's the
that
thing,
make it
right? Just to
special.
wrap this up real quick, there's a running theme throughout this whole story, whether we're talking about Susie Hinton, whether we're talking about Danny, whether we're talking about me. We're talking about fighting the fight, not giving up, man. Giving back when you can. So the young people there, or even you old farts, man, fight the fight. When you're passionate about something, work towards it. And there's something kind of interesting that I learned recently. People used to tell me, follow your passions, follow your passions, follow your passions. It's really important, follow your passions. But what's more important than following your passions, follow what you're good at and do that to the best you can, because that will give you room and income to follow those passions. Sometimes just focusing on your passions won't lead you down the proper road, even though it's your passion. Stick to what you're good at, focus on that, do that really well, be good at something. Then you'll have time to give back, including to yourself. That's all I got. I love you guys.
Of that as well, moving forward, like I said, I don't have any idea on how this thing is going to work. We're only open on the weekends as of now. We're not open, but that's because it's a residential neighborhood. We had to apply for a commercial.
Wait, you're saying when it does open, it will be a weekend only thing?
Only right now.
Okay.
And so, again, but what that did is it's going to force us to, Monday through Friday, find the support to bring schools through. And that's really what's important. This thing is, getting to the pop culture thing really quickly, is like, I get every day, at least it feels like every day, sometimes it's 20 times a day, why did you save that? Why did somebody locally save that? And there's no good answer. I'm a fool and I jumped in. I didn't know what this would cost. I didn't know what it would take. And I was passionate in that moment and I did what I did, but you guys all helped me do this and this is just right now is charging my batteries to do it. But in the end, this thing would have been lost if somebody wasn't foolish enough to just jump in and do it. And I encourage you to look at these things with different eyes. If you like something, I hear it all the time. I'm on all these blogs of like, historic New York, or historic this, or why did they tear down that deli? Because you don't shop there anymore, and you don't go there, but you want it to forever remain because you like it, but you don't. You got to kind of support these things, and you got to kind of like, you got to, if it's important, now's the time, because there's a lot of things that I'm looking at you guys, because we do a lot of urban exploring. You assume that it'll be there tomorrow, and then you get hey, they're tearing that down, or they took that out. And in Hollywood and New York, and I'm assuming here as well, things move really fast. Tulsa, there was a state of grace because it moves very slow. And that area that they filmed The Outsiders is very impoverished, so there was no need to grab the land and turn it into something. So we got very lucky. The only other things that exist like it right now off the top is the Christmas Story House, which is in Cleveland, Ohio, which that guy also put in about $500,000 to get that thing. And it is a wonder for that area, and that neighborhood was very tore up. And it's a whole ecosystem and an economy to itself, and it's only bettered that neighborhood. The Field of Dreams is there, and somebody finally bought the farmhouse and the field, and it's one group now, and they have it, and that's like really out in the sticks. And then this one in Tulsa, and there's smaller versions of that, you know, from horror movies and stuff. But what I'm getting at, it is the draw now for Tulsa. It is one of a few things there that people now say, oh, Tulsa, you don't know? We've got Kane's Ballroom, we've got the BOK Center, we've got Leon Russell's Church Studios, and we've got the Outsiders House.
And now Bob Dylan.
But yeah, they got a Bob Dylan collection. There's a ton of stuff that's happening right now, but believe me when I tell you, they get it now. And I'm only hoping that if you understand what I'm talking about, that you look at these things, and if there's an opportunity, if I came with a bunch of money and a bunch of knowledge, it wouldn't be an impressive story in general. It's impressive to me only for the fact that I know what I'm capable of, and it's not that. Yet here I am telling you how to do it, because if you ask for help, and you're serious about it, and you are passionate about it, you may receive the help, and you can build great things. And I feel that this is a great thing. And if you ever find your way in Tulsa, come by and I'll show you what a great thing it is. And I appreciate you guys listening to me talk.
Hey guys, give it up.